Elon Musk bought Twitter.
Yeah, baby. I don't know if that's good for us Tesla investors, though. Like,
Why
I,
would
I
you
want him
think that?
focused on Tesla. I want him focused on SpaceX, even. Fine. And he has the Boring Company, and he has he has like 16 different things he's doing. Now he's
Yeah.
taking it private, by the way. So
Mhm.
this private thing, how do I make money on this private thing?
You don't.
Well, this sounds terrible.
Twitter accepts Elon Musk's buyout deal.
Twitter's to be acquired by an entity wholly owned by Elon Musk for $54.24. I'm sorry, and 20 cents per share in cash, an evaluation valued at approximately $44 billion. This is the amount that was originally proposed by Musk. So worth noting that as he had originally said, he was not open to negotiation there. They say that Twitter stockholders will receive that $54.20 in cash for each share of common stock. And that represents a 38% premium to Twitter's closing price on April 1st. There's a statement here from Brett Taylor, who's Twitter's independent board chair, and this is it. He says, quote, the Twitter board conducted a thoughtful and comprehensive process to assess Elon's proposal with a deliberate focus on value, certainty, and financing. The proposed transaction will deliver a substantial cash premium, and we believe it is the best path forward for Twitter's stockholders. Then Parag Agrawal, who is Twitter CEO, who is not very well known by the investment community, has not done an interview with
And
us
he's
here on
fired.
CNBC. He says, quote, Twitter has a purpose and relevance that impacts the entire world, deeply proud of our teams, et cetera. And then I just want to mention what Musk says in this press release, and this goes back to why he wanted to buy Twitter. He says, quote, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. He says, I want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots, and authenticating all humans. He says, Twitter has tremendous potential. I look forward to working with the company and the community of users to unlock it.
So there you go. $44 billion took it over. He said clearly that this was a move for free speech. What do you think? Is this overall a good thing? Do you believe him that this was his intention?
I think he's a good guy, and he wants to do the right thing. And he's a billionaire, so what is this costing him? Almost nothing. The rest of the money he's probably getting against his shares or something where he might not have to sell too much. Maybe he'll sell something, but not too much. Anyway, I don't think he's doing a bad thing in that respect. But as an investor, I see no benefit for any investor in this deal at all, because once he buys those shares and he takes them away from them, all the Twitter investors who thought eventually this is going to be a $100 billion company or 200 billion, that's over, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think they've had since the time that it's IPO, they've had trouble trying to figure out how to monetize something like Twitter. Because if you do that, if it's supposed to be a public square, people sharing ideas, the fact that corporations will buy attention so that they can sell their products, it's fundamentally against the idea of sharing ideas. If you look at Musk's other successful company, SpaceX, that company is private, and there's a specific reason why a company like that should be private. We discussed this on our Discord when they shifted gears to help with the war in Ukraine. He posted something on Twitter that SpaceX Starship would be delayed and some ramp up on Starlink would be delayed. These would be things that would negatively affect the stock price that don't matter to a private company. And I think he's got a lot of experience with a publicly traded company and a private company, so I think he's the guy to do this.
That's fine for them, but I feel like all the Twitter investors who were looking for bigger gains, I think it's sort of being shortchanged actually, because the market was kind of high and it was in the 70s, I think. It went up to 70s.
It was 77. I think that was the all-time high, 77.
I know, but why didn't some people like sell out? If all these people wanted out, like Twitter, like the Twitter board has now realized everyone wants out now.
Yeah.
Why didn't a lot of them sell when it was pretty high? Because everybody would have been almost in profit at that point, I think. Yeah, but I'm saying anyone who dollar cost averaged even over the last 5-10 years of Twitter would have been up. I feel like the investors are getting screwed here. I think Elon Musk is getting what he wants. I think it's going to be better for me and you as end users. I agree, because I'm no longer an investor in Twitter. But I don't feel it's great for the investors. I just don't believe that.
Yeah, but I do think that the investors are the last priority in this case.
Oh,
That's
definitely,
That's
100%.
part of the risk, right? And I think he's doing it for just reasons and just causes. And I do think that he's the guy that he'll go ahead and unlock this potential. Congratulations to Elon Musk. I look forward to seeing what you do with it.
Is this actually good for Tesla investors? And I don't know yet, because if Elon is distracted by Twitter, even for 6 months, look, I know there's a team there for that kind of stuff, those projects, but let's face it, if he wasn't there day to day, that kind of personality pushing those people, there's plenty of companies who have CEOs who are not as strong as him who don't get to do as much as he does because he's there pushing those people. So I'm wondering if we're delayed now in certain other projects.
First of all, in the interview that we're about to watch, he explicitly explains what his plans are and his level of involvement. If you look at the polls that they do with kids getting out of engineering school across the United States, the number one and number two company that they want to work for, the best new talent is Tesla and SpaceX. So he has the best minds in the world. It's not like he just has a couple of people working for him. He has the absolute best people at the top of their field. So if he is diverting some of his attention to it, I don't think that it means that Tesla will be slowed down at all. And he's that kind of a guy. He would calculate what the risk to that is.
Anytime you devote any resources to something else gets damaged, even if it's a little bit. So I feel like Tesla itself will suffer some tiny amount of damage that might not matter in the long term. But let's face it, I want to be rich in 6 months. I don't want to be rich in a year. So back to being an investor, I just care about Tesla stock. I don't care about necessarily the Boring Company, how well that's doing. I have no say in that. I don't care about Twitter. I just don't care about those things. Sorry, guys. I'm looking out for numero uno here, okay?
Look, this is a guy, 110 million in the bank. He could have lived the lap of luxury for the rest of his life. Took all of that money and started these two companies with the sole purpose of helping humanity. One of them to accelerate our shift to sustainable energy, the other one to ensure that we have a future in case some catastrophe happens on Earth. You don't do that. He's not giving up all of this time, money, and essentially his entire life to have a dystopian nightmare where we're like one step under China in terms of free speech, right? The society he's building this for, he wants it to be a free society. Tesla does
no, the moral thing. You're arguing the moral thing. I agree with the moral thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying as the investor, just when you put on your investor hat, is this better for Tesla? I still want my Tesla stock to go faster up so that I can cash out and live a life of luxury. That's still the case for me.
But let's be honest, the price targets that we're looking for where we would begin to sell are still several years out. And what he's doing with Twitter now is not going to have any effect at all with Tesla producing 20 million vehicles in 2030.
I think that's true.
There's an upside here that we might not be seeing if we're looking at 6 months profit. And we say this to the audience all the time. Don't have those like 6 month blinders. Look a few steps
I was
ahead.
looking for $1,600 price target. So as long as that's not ruined for me.
Part of why he did it is in response to a liberal left-leaning media that is silencing certain voices that even if you disagree with should have the same stage. He wasn't always happy with how he's represented in the media. And now because he's like the owner of Twitter, he has to be quoted correctly. There's a lot of spin that happens, you can see with Elon Musk. He'll say something really positive on an earnings call about wanting to do something sustainable, and the media will jump on something else or a tweet that he said instead of that. Like he was, like for example, none of the media came to rescue him when he wasn't included in the, in the EV summit.
Some senators came out and immediately are like blasting him for buying this company. And it's like, excuse me, this is America, and Twitter, by the way, makes no money. So it's not even like he's buying a profitable company. He's taking on a lot of debt in order to do this. So I don't see any reason why they should even stand in his way. And it's not like Twitter is the successful social media platform. If anything, if he was buying Facebook, that would be much more dangerous, quote unquote.
Right.
Or if he was buying TikTok, much more dangerous.
There it is. Elizabeth Warren says Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter is dangerous.
There you go. I didn't even know she said that, but there you go. I'm saying
there
dangerous.
You go. It's not even
It's actually not quotes.
Senator Warren tweeted that Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter was dangerous for our democracy. She has also advocated for a wealth tax for billionaires like Musk. Warren has been calling Musk out since last year, saying the billionaires should pay more taxes. This is just another example. Here's what she says. This deal is dangerous for our democracy. Billionaires like Elon Musk play by a different set of rules than everyone else, accumulating power for their own gain. We need a wealth tax and strong rules to hold big tech accountable. Anyone that knows the story knows that Elon Musk paid more taxes last year than any other person in the history of time. And at the same time, the reason why he didn't pay any taxes in 2018 is because he overpaid in 2017. Yet she's continuously hammering this idea home. If I was him, I would be incredibly frustrated by that I'm purposefully being spun into being an evil, villainous sort of billionaire, when if you think about it, he's one of the few people that's really aligned with what's best for humanity.
Both things can exist, by the way. That is possible. Billionaires should pay more in taxes, and he can save us. Okay. Just a reminder that from 2014 to 2018, Elon Musk paid an effective tax rate of 3.27%. The average working family pays an average tax rate of 13%. It's time for a wealth tax in this country. Between those years that she's pointing out, by the way, he was going bankrupt. Tesla was failing. I forgot when SpaceX did their launch. Maybe they were okay, but they weren't like raking it in. So I wrote another dumb tweet by a dumb lawmaker. And I usually don't say that, even to especially to lawmakers, but it's like, you're not giving us the facts, and you should definitely give us all the facts. In this case, that she's totally wrong. He took a big risk. He put it all on the line and he won. So yes, now he should pay taxes. But between 2014 and 2018, he was not making any money.
It's also, you pay taxes on realized gains. These politicians know this, and they put this narrative out there to make people hate Elon Musk. I mean, that's literally what the purpose of that is. I could see how that would just get under your skin after a while. And you go, you know what? I'm just going to get my platform to set this straight. And
he's going to ban all of those politicians.
I'll ban all the squad. I just think it's unfair when he's actually somebody that is trying to help everyone on the planet. He's literally trying to help everyone. His companies are trying to help and or save everyone on the planet. And to just see these people who, up until, a few years ago, you were on their side, now just coming out and attacking this guy.
You're making it worse for yourself, and I don't even like you anymore. I'm not on your side. So if I'm not on their side, am I on the other side? I don't know. Now I'm getting confused, because
the idea is, if you disagree with anything, you're automatically a conservative.
When you sell something, you pay taxes on long-term capital gains. They know this, right? If they want to change that, okay, then change it. After you make 10 billion bucks, change it to something. But you're hitting the wrong guy. That's what I keep feeling. I feel like they're going after the wrong person when they could have picked easier target. Pick Mark Zuckerberg. He's so easy to go after.
I think the fact that it's Elon Musk and the way that they're going about it reveals what the intention is. It's just a grab for votes. I think it's just a grab for votes. It's
I think
a very
you're right.
easy thing. We hate the billionaires. The billionaires are the reason why you're poor, and so vote me in, knowing full well that if they wanted to change the rules, they could do it. But they're not going to, because they also chump up capitalism as the greatest system in the world. And what is the end result of capitalism? When some people are really good, you become a billionaire.
The main reason they're not actually going to change anything is because of people like what's her name?
Pelosi?
Yeah, they're not going to change anything because Pelosi and her husband trade like they're day traders, basically. All senators, not just Pelosi. By the way, it's Republicans too. You could look at the differences in what they buy. But my point is, if all of them are basically doing it, besides, let's say, 4 crazy people, are accumulating assets, you guys should accumulate assets, as opposed to saying that this is a bad thing. And the way it's all framed, it just keeps poor people poorer, as I keep going back to. And I think me and you talked about this a long time ago, that if you don't teach people how to fish, then they are always begging for fish.
It's, if you give a man a fish, they eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, they eat for a lifetime.
So those 4 crazy liberals, which I'm not even for anymore, and I used to believe in some of what they're saying, but they're so crazy in what they're spouting now that you're not supposed to accumulate assets. You're not supposed to build wealth in America. Like, this is a bad thing now. This is how you keep poor people poor and hating billionaires. And this is so stupid.
Well, it's, the left has gone so far left now that if you were center before, you're now on the right. Bill Maher had a great thing about this, because he's getting a lot of flack for being considered a conservative now. He's like, I didn't change, the party changed. They went so far to the left that where I'm standing is now right. And that, just by saying you're right wing and you're a conservative, it's a way of villainizing you so that I don't have to listen to your idea. I don't have to listen to what you have to say, even if it makes sense. The $44 billion Elon Musk just spent on Twitter could buy roughly 2 billion mRNA COVID vaccine doses for the world. I think this answer sums it up best. How can I make this about myself, right? It's like, people want to go and spend $44 billion when they didn't earn it. It's so easy to spend someone else's money. That's what the government does. They just spend your money. They take your tax money and they spend it.
I don't even see the issue there. Like, he made it. He took all the risk. He deserves it. He can spend it on whatever he wants.
I think that there's going to be a trouncing in November, and I think this is a pivot point.
He is saving the world, okay? So if you are changing the world to green energy, and technically liberals are for green energy, recycling, these are the things we love to do, right? You've got the guy who's doing it, but maybe you don't love everything he says, but hey, the end benefit is actually amazing. So why don't you just live with that guy that you got?
You can criticize him in the news, but you should also equally praise him when he does something that is right. There's no news covering the good that Elon Musk is doing. It wasn't included in an EV summit when his company literally created the space. It's that sort of snubbing where you start to say, okay, there's a serious political bias here, and it makes something that shouldn't be political.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be political. We're just trying to do an investment channel, but how can you not? That element is brought into it, especially when those political forces affect our investments.
Imagine he was supported by the government, like you're
Stock
saying,
would be $2,500.
it would be
right
over
now.
$2,000. So maybe that's a benefit. They're not supporting it so much, so we can buy some more shares. But
Kind of.
literally, they're keeping the stock price down because everything to do with EVs. Oh, you can't get this other tax credit. This is for especially for people who
Right.
who
The
have
FUD over the car accidents. Every Tesla that gets a nick
NHTSA
on the
stuff
road,
that's after them,
they're
Biden
coming
stuff that's
after them.
after him. It's like, dude, this is the
Funding
only guy
secured,
changing it.
SEC, the
Yes.
short sellers. I mean, there's been a lot that's sort of artificially keeping this stock down, which is insane that it's been one of the most solid performers in the market
It's still
lately.
resilient, right?
It's so resilient because there's a lot of people
And
that
Bill Gates,
know
let's mention that. Bill Gates also keeping the stock
500
price down.
million, right? 500 million. This is the interview that Elon Musk did in April. You and I will probably never interview this guy, right? So the limited time that we get with him is always through some third party that's going to get the time with him. And what I feel is like these guys need to ask better questions of someone of his stature. And it's incredibly frustrating. And I don't know if you feel this too, when they have the guy sitting there for an hour and they're asking him these questions where I'm like, why are you wasting time with one of the smartest guys on the planet? There's like way more important things to talk about. Or they'll ask a question in a way that they're not going to get an answer that has value.
A few hours ago, you made an offer to buy Twitter.
How'd you know? Well, I think it's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech where all, yeah.
I mean, again, literally, the first thing out of his mouth is, "I think there should be an inclusive arena for free speech." And on Twitter, they're hammering him for being in this for profit, or that he's a danger to democracy.
Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square. It's just really important that people have the reality and the perception that they're able to speak freely within the bounds of the law. So one of the things that I believe Twitter should do is open source the algorithm and make any changes to people's tweets. If they're emphasized or de-emphasized, that action should be made apparent so anyone can see that action has been taken.
Last week when we spoke, Elon, I asked you whether you were thinking of taking over. You said no way. You said, I do not want to own Twitter. It is a recipe for misery. Everyone will blame me for everything. What on earth changed?
No, I think everyone will still blame me for everything. Yeah.
At the end of the day, any missteps that happen after he buys it will be on him. So, and there's so many missteps on Twitter. It's not like day one, everything's going to be solved. And then he's just going to be inundated with all of these missteps, and the media still attacking him, by the way. I don't know if he just bought a headache. What he just said there just made me feel like, oh my God, did you just buy a $44 billion headache?
Well, he goes on to say in the interview, we'll hear him say, he says, "My goal with Twitter is that the extreme left and the extreme right are both equally pissed off. If they're both equally pissed off, that's how you know you have a free and open platform." You're right. He's going to get an enormous amount of hate coming his way, but he already did anyway. At least now he has a platform where he can speak his mind freely and combat that speech with his own speech. Whereas before, he's still playing within the rules of the big tech that he saw was part of the problem of his public image, right? So he was kind of in a no-win situation anyway. I think he's the kind of guy where he just wants to be behind the wheel.
So guys, we do have a Discord. We talk about Elon Musk. We talk about Tesla. We talk about FUV. We talk about SoFi. We just had a great video and it's doing pretty well.
There's some people that hit me up on Reddit looking for the spreadsheet, and I told them you just have to come in and join the Discord, and there it is, or join the Patreon. And you can
Well, yeah, you got to pay us at least $1 right now. Actually, for the spreadsheets, you got to pay $4.20. So on our Discord, we actually post spreadsheets, and we did a SoFi video just recently. We'll have a link up here. And we're posting our spreadsheets and everything on our Patreon members. And the way you get that is you have to go to the 420 level. The dollar level is just if you want some private Discord chatting, of course, and you want to support us. But that is going away, that $1 per month. So if you want to be grandfathered in, please sign up for the $1 per month. And if you really want to hook us up and help this channel grow, $4.20. Elon's favorite number. Come on down. Check out our spreadsheets. Check out our trades. Discuss with us. And we have special content only for our Patreons. Thank you, guys.
I hope it's not too measurable, but it's important to the function of democracy. It's important to the function of the United States as a free country and many other countries, and to help freedom in the world. Civilizational risk is decreased the more we can increase the trust of Twitter as a public platform. It's definitely not from the standpoint of let me figure out how to monopolize or maximize my ownership of Twitter. I mean, I could technically afford it.
I heard that. I heard that.
My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
And he said it right there. A free platform that is trusted by the people is like imperative to a functioning democracy for the future of civilization.
And I agree with him. Once again, this is on the moral basis, but now he even said this is not about making money.
No, but he didn't say Twitter's not going to make money. He's saying I'm not in it to make money. So he's
no, I understand. But if the CEO is not in it to make money, okay, that is a problem for the next guy who is in it to make money. So if I gave you 20 billion of the 44 billion, I would want to return. So there must be something that's being worked out.
There's ways that those guys can get their money back. But I think what he's saying is that this is a generational thing. Twitter is super important to the way that we communicate. It's on a fundamental level now where he feels like it needs to be protected. In the same way that he built an AI company, right, in Tesla, because he felt that AI was an existential threat to humanity. He's like, somebody should do it, and maybe it should be us. What he's saying is if he doesn't do this, the overall effect is worse than stock depreciation.
You've described yourself, Elon, as a free speech absolutist. But does that mean that there's literally nothing that people can't say? And
part of the reason why I wanted to do this interview was to dissect and analyze that guy's interviewing style. This is a series of questioning that I think he was spot on. A good interviewer asks the questions that everyone's thinking. Well, you finally just get the answer. He drills down into this idea of like, where's the line? And because I think that's what everyone's saying. Free speech, where's the line?
Right.
And I think he does a good job of pushing Elon on some answers.
You've described yourself, Elon, as a free speech absolutist. Does that mean that there's literally nothing that people can't say and it's okay?
Twitter or any forum is bound by the laws of the country that it operates in.
So you can't incite people to violence. You can't do the equivalent of crying fire in a movie theater, for example.
No, that would be a crime.
Yeah, right.
It should be a crime.
But here's the challenge: is that it's such a nuanced difference between different things. There's incitement to violence.
Yeah.
That's a no if it's illegal. There's hate speech, which some forms of hate speech are fine. I hate spinach.
I mean, if it's sautéed in a cream sauce, it can be quite nice.
But the problem is, okay, here's one tweet. I hate politician X.
Yeah.
Next tweet is, I wish politician X wasn't alive, as some of us have said about Putin right now, for example. So that's legitimate speech. Another tweet is, I wish politician X wasn't alive, with a picture of their head with a gun sight over it. Or that plus their address. I mean, at some point, someone has to make a decision as to which of those is not okay. Can an algorithm do that? Or surely you need human judgment at some point?
Twitter should match the laws of the country, and really, that there's an obligation to do that. Going beyond that, and having it be unclear who's making what changes to where, having tweets sort of mysteriously be promoted and demoted with no insight into what's going on, having a black box algorithm promote some things and not other things. I think this can be quite dangerous.
So the idea of opening the algorithm is a huge deal, and I think many people would welcome that.
And critique it. I think the code should be on GitHub, so people can look through it and say, I see a problem here. They can highlight issues,
right,
suggest changes, in the same way that you sort of update Linux or Signal or something like that,
It really, the longer this goes on, Elon is entering a world of shit. I still think at some point a decision has to be made by someone at Twitter on that gun to the head, that probably went too far.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will agree, of course, but there's going to be the 5% who don't, and they're going to raise all sorts of hell on and then the media will get involved just because it's news, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's putting himself in a very bad position. I could see these issues coming up, or Trump coming back, or whatever it is.
Trump says he won't return to Twitter even if he's reinstated by Musk.
Trump will be back in 3 seconds, guys.
I'm sure he will, but I'm saying, according to CNN, Trump says he won't return to Twitter even if reinstated by Elon.
Trump is right now sitting by his phone waiting for the approval sticker.
He's in Mar-a-Lago right now in his underwear.
For example, at some point right now, what the algorithm would do is it would look at, for example, how many people have flagged a tweet as obnoxious. And then at some point, a human has to look at it and make a decision. Which humans make that core. I mean, do you have a picture of that? Twitter and Facebook and others, they've hired thousands of people to try to help make wise decisions. And the trouble is that no one can agree on what is wise.
If in doubt, let it exist. I'm not saying that I have all the answers here, but I do think that we want to be just very reluctant to delete things, just be very cautious with permanent bans. Timeouts, I think, are better. It won't be perfect, but I think we want to really have, like I said, the perception and reality that speech is as free as reasonably possible. And a good sign as to whether there is free speech is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like. And if that is the case, then we have free speech.
Good answer.
Some others are absolutely horrified. Wait a sec, we agree that Twitter is an incredibly important town square. It is where the world exchanges opinion about life and death matters. How on earth could it be owned by the world's richest person? What's the response there? Is there any way that you can distance yourself from the actual decision-making that matters on content?
I won't personally be, in there editing tweets. But you'll know if something was done to promote, demote, or otherwise affect a tweet. As for media sort of ownership, I mean, you've got Mark Zuckerberg owning Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, and with a share ownership structure that will have Mark Zuckerberg the 14th still controlling those entities.
So he's saying there, like something like Facebook, something like Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp is a much bigger, say, footprint. It reaches a lot more people. That's owned by one person, and the structure is that basically Zuckerberg's will own those companies for life. So he's drawing a comparison there.
Yeah, well, yeah, because the share type, even though Mark Zuckerberg doesn't own the majority of the shares, he owns the controlling shares. I forgot if it's Class A, Class B. I'm not sure about all of that, but
Amit would know.
Amit is legit would know. But yeah, so Mark Zuckerberg does control Facebook, basically. Absolutely right. And so Elon controlling Twitter, just another billionaire controlling something else. Fine. I don't think there's easy solutions for some of these things. Like Elon's like, oh, we'll just have something to track it, or we won't promote that thing. But there's like this gray area that we're not sure of. Like, is this actually going to lead to violence, or like something might happen that we can't control? And so some people do have to make those decisions. At the end of the day, someone is going to have to make a decision that maybe Elon doesn't even like, and that 10% of the population won't like. And or they'll make it the other way where they'll leave it on and it'll lead to something really catastrophic. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. This has been going on for Twitter for a long time. But now Elon will once again start getting that the brunt of that.
He's gonna be the punching bag. I think what he's doing, I think him buying Twitter is a response to the amount of time that he has to take out of his day to defend himself on Twitter anyway. And feeling that he was unfairly treated by the platform itself made it feel like, okay, I have to just own the platform here, because if I don't make this thing free, then essentially when those forces want to paint a picture of me and Tesla and SpaceX, they can. And I'm powerless to stop that. I think this buying Twitter was much more a reaction than a proactive decision.
I think he's treating it like an engineering problem. We'll have a GitHub, we'll open source this, we'll have tags on it. I know what he's saying. But at the end of the day, there's going to be actual problems that arise from people, nothing to do with the algorithm.
They arise anyway. I know.
Nothing to do with the tagging of it.
Basically saying is people are the problem.
People are the problem. Yes. When we lose trust in like Twitter, for example, when these things happen, or Facebook, it's when humans are getting involved in certain issues because they're too complicated for the algorithm.
Well, I think that's what he wants. I mean, I don't think he wants to be involved. He just wanted to ensure that it's a fair platform and have the right people working on it to make it that. Yeah. And if it's a private company and it's not motivated by the same things as a public company with quarterly profits, et cetera, he feels that they could achieve the mission statement of the company more effectively.
And the interviewer he's doing a great job, by the way. I do like that he's probing this, maybe non-technical, but more the human aspect of what's going on here. And he's really getting at the heart of the problem for Elon here.
I think if you're interviewing someone of Elon's stature, you have a responsibility to extract as much value for everyone as possible. Because if we're concerned with him wasting his time on something, taking his attention away from Tesla, then if he's going to take his time to sit down and do an interview, there should be a lot of meat on that bone.
Well, a top priority I would have is eliminating the spam and scam bots and the bot armies that are on Twitter. I think they make the product much worse. If I had a Dogecoin for every crypto scam I saw.
So help us understand how it is you've built this incredible following on Twitter yourself when, I mean, some of the people who love you the most look at some of what you tweet, they think it's somewhere between embarrassing and crazy. Is that actually why it's worked?
I'm, tweeting more or less stream of consciousness, It's not like, let me think about some grand plan about my Twitter or whatever, I'm like, literally on the toilet or something. I'm like, oh, this is funny, and then tweet that out, oversharing.
But you are obsessed with getting the most out of every minute of your day, and so why not?
Okay, so that I feel was a missed opportunity. Asking Elon Musk how he amassed the number of followers on Twitter, I think it is a missed opportunity. I think what he could have asked at that point, an opportunity is to say what qualities about you or your tweets or your presence on Twitter has attracted that many followers. What do you think is resonating between you and the number of followers? Because it's not like you can buy followers, right? So they're following you for a specific reason. Why?
Is funding secured?
For Twitter.
Yeah.
I have sufficient assets to complete the... With Tesla back in the day, funding was actually secured. I want to be clear about that. In fact, this may be a good opportunity to clarify that. If funding was indeed secured, why do I not have respect for the SEC in that situation? And I don't mean to blame everyone at the SEC, but certainly the San Francisco office. It's because the SEC knew that funding was secured, but they pursued an active public investigation nonetheless. At the time, Tesla was in a precarious financial situation, and I was told by the banks that if I did not agree to settle with the SEC, that the banks would cease providing working capital and Tesla would go bankrupt immediately. So that's like having a gun to your child's head. So I was forced to concede to the SEC unlawfully, those bastards. And it makes it look like I lied when I did not in fact lie. I was forced to admit that I lied to save Tesla's life, and that's the only reason.
That's super important. There was a different way that he answered that question from the previous questions. That is at the heart of what this thing with Twitter is. He felt like he was being overrun by a media and organizations that were biased against him, and there was nothing he can do. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that likes to feel powerless.
People like me and you would say controversial things, which we don't, but if we ever did that, he's trying to protect our speech. That's where the good part of him buying it, that he has enough money and enough clout to not care if he generates enough income to keep it an open platform. We'll see what happens. I think I go back to he's bought himself a big headache. What's
the real long-term goal here? The very first thing out of his mouth, it's not about finances, it's not about making money or amplifying money. It's about preserving something that I feel is fundamental to a civilization that I've given my whole life trying to protect.
The person he should bring in as a partner, if he's doesn't have one yet, is Bill Gates, and that's the way Bill Gates can apologize for shorting Tesla.
He says to him, if you really want philanthropy, yeah, give me $20 billion.
$22 billion.
Write a check, Bill.
If you could go back in time and change one decision you made along the way, which one would it be and why?
The worst business decision I ever made was not starting Tesla with just J.B. Straubel. Tesla was a shell company with no employees, no intellectual property when I invested. But a false narrative has been created by one of the other co-founders, Martin Everhard. And I don't want to get into the nastiness here, but
false narrative.
I didn't invest in an existing company. We created a company. Ultimately, the creation of that company was done by JV and me. And unfortunately, there's someone else, another co-founder who has made it his life's mission to make it sound like he created the company, which is false.
We should look this up because from what I gather, maybe this is the false narrative. There was a prototype that was made before Elon got started to invest. So I think there was something, unless I'm totally mistaken, please put it in the comments, but I thought there was some sort of a prototype. And then they started working on that when he invested, I think, $10 million into the company.
We'll obviously discuss this video on Discord. Maybe we get some more information, and maybe that's a topic for a future video.
What has Tesla actually accomplished that is most noteworthy? It is not the creation of an electric vehicle or creating an electric vehicle prototype or low volume production. The absolutely difficult thing, which has not been accomplished by an American car company in 100 years, is reaching volume production without going bankrupt. That is the actual hard thing. The last American company to reach volume production without going bankrupt was Chrysler in the 20s. Right. We basically messed up almost every aspect of the Model 3 production line. Everything was messed up. I lived in the Fremont and Nevada factories for 3 years. fixing that production line, running around like a maniac through every part of that factory, living with the team.
Yeah.
I slept on the floor so that the team who was going through a hard time could see me on the floor, that they knew that I was not in some ivory tower. Whatever pain they experienced, I had it more.
No, the story is amazing, and it shows how difficult it is to do what he's doing. Like, we see the end product and we think, oh, yeah, of course that was going to happen. Like, there could have been a million points where they could have failed. And this makes me think about all the other companies like we've invested in or thinking of investing in or discussing on the channel.
Of Lucid, I thought of Polestar,
Rivian,
I'm thinking of
FUV.
Rivian. This is what they're all going through now.
Yes, they're going through this pain, and how many of them will survive? That's really the question. It seems like most of them will be dead within the decade. And I don't like saying that, but it's probably going to happen because if Elon, with the guy who's sleeping on the floor for 3 years, barely made it, how's the guy who's not sleeping on the floor in his factory going to make it? I don't think there's going to be another Elon anytime soon.
No, I mean, someone that would willingly make the choice, and he said he did it so that the people could see him. That's the idea. That's that picture that we showed, right? The boss versus a leader. This is the photo we're talking about. We've shown this photo before, but this is the.
And I think the way you pick quality companies is by picking the one on the bottom, picking that second image, right? And anytime you see that image on top, and you realize a CEO or their executive team is not doing the thing on the bottom, I think it's a bad investment, just as investors again.
Investors, we're the guys up here.
Yeah, we're just like I'm saying, Elon, get back. Elon, get back to Tesla, man. I'm not paying you for this shit.
He knows his business in a way that like not a lot of other CEOs can say that they do. This is where he had that quote about, I know more about production than anyone on earth.
I mean, there wasn't any other way to make it work. There were 3 years of hell, 2017, 18, and 19. It was the longest period of excruciating pain in my life.
It seems like he's going to cry.
There wasn't any other way.
Holding it back.
And we barely made it, and we were on the ragged edge of bankruptcy the entire time. But it had to be done, or Tesla would be dead.
When you looked around the Gigafactory that we saw images of earlier, do you feel that this challenge of figuring out the new way of manufacturing from those 3 years won't be repeated?
At this point, I think I know more about manufacturing than anyone currently alive on Earth.
Tweet that.
He's the only CEO, I agree, that has this kind of level of intimate knowledge about producing vehicles, electric vehicles. Chris Anderson has never built anything legitimate. That's why he doesn't understand that Elon Musk had to sleep at that factory. He had no choice. There wasn't like an option like, oh, let me send number 2. Let that guy do it. No, he had to be there. He had to know the ins and outs in order just to survive, so the company survives. That was good to hear as an engineering student to hear Elon say that. Yeah.
Well, also, it was interesting his choice of words, Elon's choice of words when he was describing the issue that he had with the SEC. How they were saying, well, if you don't agree to these terms, then no banks will give you funding and Tesla will go bankrupt. He said it's like someone putting a gun to your baby's head. That tells you how he sees that company. That's the sensibility that he's going to bring to Twitter. I think the ramifications of this and the potential positive effects for Tesla and other investments that we may have that are affected by Elon are still not yet to be seen. We might not see the connection between what Neuralink is doing and what Boring Company is doing with, say, what SpaceX is doing, but Elon does not see a distinction between those companies. And I'm sure that now that Twitter's part of that portfolio, there's an element there to it.
If he was a little bit quieter sometimes, I don't know if the stock would do better at this point. I have no idea. Like, because it's Elon, he might have made it this way because he's so outspoken and boisterous. Maybe that is what gets all this attention for Tesla in the first place. So maybe we're doing well because of that. But now on the other end, Tesla's doing fine. So I don't want anyone to like squash it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'll go back to something that you posted in our last video. It was the one on SoFi, the picture that you have on the wall. If people were wrong so much, we wouldn't be rich, right? Pretty much figured out that part of the reason why Tesla is not at $2,000 a share right now is because of all of the FUD and the people that are getting Elon Musk and the company wrong or have biases against him artificially keeping it down. If he had the full tailwind of the media and the government behind him, if they had that tailwind that, say, a company like GM or Ford is enjoying right now, the stock could have run away from us. We might have a much smaller position. And so in that sense, even if there is a backlash from him owning Twitter that does affect Tesla stock, we know what our price targets are to start selling. And so that just gives us a chance to accumulate more shares. In the long run, it's not going to hurt us, even if in the short term, it's going to be bloody.
Yeah, the tide is coming in no matter what at some point. So
exactly.
We just have to wait.
3-4 million vehicles a year, it becomes undeniable.
Just thinking now about all my other investments, into other car companies. Are these people doing what this guy is doing? It's like, of course they're not. Because now I got to look at everything. I got to look at, is Enphase doing what Elon is doing? I have to start researching, like, is Badri putting in the effort and the time? He's a smart engineer. I do know that,
They might not need to, but in defense of a company like Enphase, they might not need to. When you're on the cusp of bleeding out, I mean, and that's basically going bankrupt is bleeding out. That's what keeps the company afloat. So when you're on the verge of like bankruptcy and it's imminent, every day is valuable because that's what you're paying for, right? And so that's why he slept on the floor, because he knew that, like, I can't get this day back. There was a video, and maybe I'll link to it here, that I was watching. Alex Hormozy was talking about this like talk that Munger gave. Within that, he said something that stuck with me. And he said something about, a lot of people talk about doing their best. And he goes, but it's not about doing your best. It's about doing what is required. Your best might not be what is required to succeed. And so it's up to you to get better so that your skills meet and exceed the level that is required to reach the goal. I can show link to the video. It's called like the 28 ways to stay poor. It's this idea called, I think it's called inverse philosophy. The idea is that the human mind is much more capable of seeing problems than it is solutions. So instead of looking at ways that you want your company or your life to succeed, look at all of the ways that you could fail and list them all out, and then just do the opposite. Because then you have a better plan than if you just tried to look for the ways that it succeed, because you'd have a confirmation bias. And I was reminded of that when he said it. Elon is the kind of guy that does not do his best. He does what is necessary, what is required to achieve his goals.